Hello everybody, it's time to talk about the first paper, and the first thing I want to say about the first paper is I'm circling it, you are not writing this paper this week, right? I'm going to talk about the paper so you know what's coming. You're going to do a handout so you start thinking about what you might write about, and then we're going to have a whole nother week and some more stories to decide if, hey, will that topic work or do I want to change it? So, you're not writing the paper this week. Don't start. Just do the handout because I want to spread this out so we can think about it. I can go over things along the way because the nice thing about an English class is we get to treat writing as a process, which it is. So you're not going to be, here's the assignment, turn it in 3 days. We're going to spend a couple weeks getting this ready to go. So you're not writing it this week, but I'm going to go over it so you can start thinking about it. Now, this handout is, of course, there's a link to this and the handout. You can read this yourself. I'll just point out a couple things, right? When I say, what does the story say about us, right? Us is humanity. What does the story say about being human? Almost every story, even if it has bunnies in it, is really about what it means to be human. Right? And a fable just uses animals as humans, right? But that's a digression. So I am really curious to see what you think this story says about humanity, which is separate from what you think, right? So college academics is often you read somebody else's work and you need to, comprehend it, interpret it, and to apply it to something else. So I'm asking you to read these stories and not what do you think about humanity, but what do these stories show us about humanity, right? And then I've got some questions to be thinking about along the way. When you think about that, like, how do these ideas challenge you? I can give you an example. There are some mothers who do some horrible things in this, and of course plenty of men doing horrible things too, but there's a special place in society for mothers, right? And depending on your background, right now in 2018 there's some mothers who've done horrible things and do horrible things, right? And there's also a bunch of people who would be like, nope, wonderful. So what does the story show about motherhood? And of course, everybody is thrown into an extreme situation here, right? But doesn't mean extreme situations aren't happening all the time, but just typically on a smaller scale. So, if you were going to write about what the story shows about motherhood, or hell, fatherhood, I mean, because think about this. We have a story where a father, right, basically orders the death of his son for stealing. So, same thing, flip it over there. Now, how does that challenge you? Right? How's it your thoughts is something to think about. How does it challenge us and what we think about being a parent, right? And then you can think about how has society explained the Holocaust, and if you watch the earlier video, you'll see two different takes. One of them blaming Germany, they're monsters, it was a specific thing, don't worry about it. The other one saying, hey, we're all capable of this. When you think about that aspect of humanity you're writing about, right? Does this version align with, what society basically says about it? Who's going to like what you're doing? Who's going to agree with your interpretation? Who's going to push back on you and say, hey, what's going on? And then what's the research say? See, and you can't start writing the paper right now because you haven't even done any research. Well, you've done your initial research reading the stories, but and ultimately this paper is a so what. The story says something about humanity, so what? And I kind of like, what's your answer to there? So you are going to get to pick what aspect of humanity you want to write about, but based from the story. And remember, you're not writing it this week. So it's going to be 1,000 words plus or minus 10%. So that means you can just, the whole thing together, use the word count at the bottom of your screen. MLA style, one of the reasons you're not starting the paper this week is because we haven't talked about MLA style, and we will begin doing that next week. And I've got some links and some nice handouts that is going to really simplify things for you. And technology has compared to what I was doing as a student 20 years ago, there are different programs that will do 90% of your formatting work, whether it's the works cited or even just formatting your the body of your paper. So MLA style, we'll start talking about that next week. And of course, from 1021, right, composition 1, clear thesis, topic, sentence, and organization. And I will have some review things up for people. Now, as far as content goes, and we're a research class, I'll expect 3 quotes or paraphrases. And again, you're not writing it this week. We haven't gone over quotes or paraphrases. We will next week. 3 quotes or paraphrases from This Way to the Gas, ladies and gentlemen. At least 1 reference to pop culture, right? A mainstream source, right? And then at least 1 source from academia. So that's most likely going to be from the electronic database, which we'll be going over, right? But I want you to look at, for example, a prior student looked at trauma and what it does to memory. And in the story, pulled up parts where the narrator was like saying, I can't even quite exactly remember what happened, and then connected it to research on how trauma affects memory. So that'd be that academic side. The blue house note, right, is, remember, this is application, right? Most of college is going to be memorization or application of this. So I want you to write about what you think the stories say about humanity, not necessarily what you think, right? And if your thoughts on humanity line up with the story, well, then that's nice. That'll be helpful. But you'll miss out of having to struggle with, I think this, but the story says that, right? So this is the paper, right, which you're not writing this week. But what you are going to do is this handout. And so you can open up the handout, put all your answers in here, and then I will have a Dropbox for it. And in this handout, first, I want you to come up with 3 things you could possibly write about, right? Because sometimes that first idea you have is great and you can use it, and sometimes it just seems good. But as soon as you dive into it a little bit, you're like, this isn't that great an idea. So I want you to have 3, right? And then once you've chosen, write down 3 different things you could write about, then let me know which one you're going to do right there. And then, right, why'd you pick that one? When you think about it, there is everything going on in these stories, from something as simple as Mrs. Hanechka, right, making food and giving them to people in there, to murder, right, and to men standing around while other men and women are murdered. I mean, we have the whole range of things, and people sharing food together, right? I mean, there's a lot that you can choose from. But when you do look at this, what are you hoping to find out? What are you interested in about that topic? Who do you think is going to support this, right? Who would also be interested in it, right? And then who wouldn't? That is the tow truck. Hold on. All right. So, what areas of academia study your topic? So, for example, if you were doing post-traumatic stress, that would be psychology, right? Sociology could go into how culture is shaped. Biology, move into, what's the human body do under all these conditions. Literature, right? What's been written about it. So I want you to think about how many different places would study this aspect of humanity. And that's just a starter's list, right? But if you can make a connection, get it down here. Because the idea is, with this handout, I want you to create a very, very big net, right? So you can catch as many ideas, as many possible places to look as possible in the beginning, and then in the process of research and just your own interest, we narrow it down, right? So the more time you put into this handout, the deeper you go, the smoother your process will be, right? Because most likely you will find some dead ends, and that's actually not a negative. That's like, oh, okay, I explored this. It didn't turn out the way that I like, so now I can move on to something else. Now, here, when it says 3 connections that you can make to your topic or popular culture, right? So I'm thinking TV shows, movies, books, anything that's like, heck, the YouTube person with 20 million followers, right? Not about the Holocaust, right? Because you're writing about an aspect of humanity that's shown in these stories. So, for example, he's got a piece about how hope can be a negative thing, right? So you might look in pop culture, right, how hope is viewed, right? And that could be, well, just like that. So who do you know somebody who's very cheerful, or how hope is portrayed in the mainstream, right? So remember, it's the aspect, whatever it is that you're looking at in humanity. So for example, motherhood, fatherhood, how is that portrayed? And that could be everything from stupid dads in The Simpsons and Family Guy and keep going, or, so TV shows, movies, books, what's out there that also deals with that aspect of humanity, right? And now along the way, those are your thoughts for anything that comes up. But I expect in order to do this, you might have to look up a couple things even to finish this handout, like how does this show up in popular culture, for example, or what areas of study. So as you're doing this, I want you to write down, hey, here's some places I've already looked just to do the handout and to figure things out. So any places that you've already looked, go ahead and label them there. This handout is due by Sunday, right? And remember, you're not writing the paper. You're doing this handout to start organizing your thoughts, and we're going to have time, right, to then start narrowing them down and turn them into a place where now I've got a good start to write my paper. But you're not doing that yet. So the more detailed work you do on the handout, the easier the next step is going to be. As always, send me any questions that you have. And it's just working out where the messaging, if you have any questions, I definitely, answer emails. If you give me a phone call, I'll get put to voicemail and I'll hear it. But this typically is the quickest because I am on our homepage more than I'm on my, easy for me to say this morning. I am on this page more than I'm on my email. So the easiest thing to do is click on this message button and send me a message. Or of course, if it's a broader question you think other people might have too, put it in the I'm raising my hand part of the discussion. All right, so read the paper assignment, read the handout, then start working on the handout. Let me know if you have any questions. And the handout is due Sunday. So make sure to do the reading and look at that psychological stuff first. Do that post, get all that done by Wednesday, then move on to this.